So we talk a little bit about the joint ventures and setting them up so that way we've got another source of leads coming in. And these leads generally are higher quality because if you set up the partnership properly, you're going to be able to have somebody who is pre-vetting and kind of speaking to you. So we'll go over some of the strategies today that are going to help position yourself in your business so that ultimately you're going to be able to get leads coming in. They're quality leads, and it's going to be consistent. Where a lot of people go wrong is they don't end up setting up the joint venture properly in the beginning. So they go and they hand out a business card, or they say, hey, give me some clients or whatever, but it's not actually replicatable. They're not able to actually get consistent people coming in. There's no real accountability, and generally it falls apart. You might get a person here or there, but without actually structuring it, with no plan, then it's very hard to track, and ultimately a lot of them fail. And the worst things that you can do is go to like the coffee shop and put on the bulletin board some business cards or a flyer, because someone will come by the next, the competitor or whatever, come by the next day and just put something over top of it, and it's just like a race to the top. So that's why we've talked a little bit about using things like reports, because what I found is, like for example, I went to a coffee shop that's up the road, and I would print out a ton of reports, and I would say, hey, can I just put these on the coffee tables? Now all of a sudden I'm not going and competing with the board and doing what everyone else is doing, but I've got quality, valuable information that's in these reports there. Right. One tip that I do like to give, and depending where you are in the business, how complex you are, you may or may not be the best decision, but I like to actually get a proxy phone number where you've got a number that's feeding into your main line, but you're able to actually track who calls you. So I do this thing on things like, if I am using a business card, I set the business card up, obviously a lot different with an offer and everything else, direct mail, newspapers, those types of things. I like to use a different phone number, so that way I know where this person came from. I also do like to have either the front desk or yourself just to ask, like, how did you hear about us? Where did you find us from? So that's why reports are really valuable in order to leverage in a joint venture partnership, at the very minimum of just, hey, can I leave this stuff here? Ideally, we want to be active in that joint venture because it's going to benefit all parties. So I'll share with you a couple of tips that I've got. And
so you have like a separate number for the report, so you know that those calls are coming from the report in that sense?
Yeah. Okay. So you change the actual phone number on the report. So let's say my phone number was,
I know what you mean, yeah.
645, like whatever it is. Like I would just change the number to be different, but it's actually feeding to the same phone number. It's just that it's like a proxy phone number, so you're able to actually track it. And there's a bunch of different services you can buy online where it's like $2.99 a month or something like that, where you've got a different phone number. And it's really important because a lot of people will say, well, I can't track my effectiveness of direct mail, or I can't track my effectiveness of newspapers, these things over here. And I'm like, well, you totally can. Number one, I send them to a different website, and I buy just a domain name, like whatever, Low Back Pain Workshop Toronto. And I use that domain name just in my direct mail. And then that way, anyone who goes to that website, I know the only place that they could have gotten from was this campaign here.
I see.
Because that's the only place that URL or domain name is listed. The same thing with the phone number. If I've got a different phone number, let's say this one was 551, and then my regular phone number is 550. I know that anyone who calls this number is going to be from this campaign because it's the only place that's listed. So that's how I can gauge the effectiveness of these types of things and quantify the results a little bit better. Same with being able to do joint ventures. We talk a little bit about that in direct mail and newspaper-based modules.
Right. Interesting.
So where we are now is partnerships. Okay. And with partnerships, there's really three main components. We've got community, value add, and synergistic. Where I like to start with most people, and we'll talk a little bit about today, is synergistic partnerships, because they're businesses that are more likely to work in your industry. So for example, a synergistic partner could be partnering with a personal trainer because it's similar kind of industry. Chances are the person's probably working on their health and fitness, and you're able to kind of bridge the gap.
Right.
A value add is someone that you could partner with where you can provide value to them, but they're not necessarily in the same community or industry as you. And this is an example of, I'll give you an example of a realtor. And I'll give you that, I'll kind of break down that example in the future. But the realtor essentially is not obviously in the health and fitness, but you can still utilize them to leverage a partnership with and get people into your world. And then lastly here, we've got community. And community-based things are, you can be going and partnering with like library, other businesses in your local area. There's groups like BNI, you know, those are kind of networking based, but like you can create your own small communities like that. Facebook groups that are community based are huge as well. So a lot of the time, if you live in a specific area, so for me, the distillery or the beaches where the clinics are, I have specific groups that are like beaches and, you know, Danforth area. And this is where people are living, and there's 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 people in these groups. So it's really good to be able to be a part of those things, because if you're able to kind of infiltrate the community and bring it up, and ultimately you have these bigger vision, you could create that community, and it creates a lot of leverage for you. And also gets you a bit of omnipresence in the area itself, where people are going to start seeing you, especially as they patronize other businesses in the area. So Synergistic is where I like to really start with people, because it's really the easiest one to set up. So I like to look at it like this: things that are before and after your service. So the example that I always give is, if I've got a barbecue and I really want to just, it's a beautiful summer day, I'm at the cottage and I want to, you know, barbecue, but I don't have one. What do I need to do? Well, I go and buy a barbecue. Makes sense, right? So I've got my barbecue, but what are all the things that I need to buy before and after? If I just buy my barbecue, but I don't buy any meat, or I don't buy any utensils, or I don't buy any plates, then I'm going to have a problem. So I need to be able to buy things before my barbecue and after in order to facilitate an overall good experience. And a lot of the time, this is why people don't get the best results possible, because they might only go to a physio and they don't do anything for exercise, or they don't do anything for nutrition. So if I look at the barbecue example, there's a lot of things I need. If I go into the store and I just buy the barbecue itself, I probably need propane. I probably need cleaning tools so I can clean after, and so on, right? Trash bags and so on. So we want to do the same thing with our business. So if I look at our business and we're providing the therapy component, and this is you, what comes before and what comes after? So before someone comes and sees you and uses your services, what might they do before? They might have gotten personal training, right? What else?
In a doctor?
Yeah, they might have seen a doctor for something specific. They might have seen a functional medicine doctor for something specific. They might have tried yoga.
Right.
It might be, you know, runners. Could be a bunch of different stuff here. And after is kind of the same sort of concept. So once someone comes for therapy for you and you help them get out of pain, what can they now go do? Well, they might be able to exercise again. They might be able to play golf. They might be able to meditate. And so on. We won't go through the entire list of everything. Obviously, there's going to be an infinite amount of things and we could overreach. But what I would like to do is just look at what are the most common things. So if I look at my business, where do most of the people come from and what do they do before and after my services? For me, I focused a lot on performance and athletic performance. So I had a lot of people who were going to see doctors before. Had surgery. They saw physical therapists. They've had personal training or strength coaching to some degree. They've been involved in some running programs or golf programs or something along those lines, and then something broke down, they weren't able to do it. And sometimes the stuff that they were trying to do before, maybe like running, they can't do anymore. You help them fix it, and they're able to do this after. But what do they maybe need to do in order to keep running after. Maybe they actually need to buy something like a new pair of shoes. And it seems very trivial, but there are running groups, and we would run programs. We would run running programs. Sounds funny there. But there's a lot of people in the population that wanted to run. What I'm going to do is align myself with other businesses that can help this client or patient get a better experience. So if I'm dealing with a runner and the person comes sees me, and one thing I notice is like, hey, you know, their shoes are not so great, then I might want to be able to align myself with a person who can fit shoes or insoles or whatever that might be specifically for runners, because that's going to give them a better experience, as well as it allows me to create a collaborative environment with these partners. So again, when you're going through this list, you don't have to go crazy and try to think of everything, but think of like the surface level. Like, what are the main things that people do before they use your service, and ultimately maybe why they need to use your service in the first place, because they don't lift properly, or they don't exercise, or they don't eat properly, and so on. So once you've got that, then I like to tick off, who do I know in my network who is a personal trainer? Who do I know in my network that, you know, owns a golf shop, that owns a run shop? Do I know any of these people? Those are the lower hanging fruit. If you already have some sort of established connection with someone, it's going to be a lot easier for them to be able to get set up with a joint venture or be more open to it, because they already know, like, and trust you to some capacity. So I like to start with those first. If you don't have any of those connections right away, or you've moved and you're in a new area or whatnot, then this is where I would start looking to begin those relationships with. And ultimately, don't do so many of them, but I like to pick maybe one or two to start with and gauge and see how they go first. If you try to shotgun it, like a lot of people do, they get super excited, they get a new set of business cards or whatever it is, and they just start pounding the pavement and go into every single business. It doesn't matter if pizza shop, auto shop, dentist, whatever. They're just going to plaster everywhere and just saying, hey, I'm new, let's book me appointments. Well, the enthusiasm and ambition is great. It's not a very strategic approach. And ultimately, you're not going to get much of a result from that. There might be one or two people who send you someone here and there, but it's not enough to make a system and to grow and scale a business from being able to do that, in my experience.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I would rather set up more strategic partnerships with people who I know are going to have the right type of client that's mine, that's going to help me be able to grow my practice. So for example, if I'm dealing with personal trainers, I know that I've got someone who's already investing both time and money into their health. So they're more than likely going to have a good chance of wanting to utilize my services, especially if they're experiencing pain or issues like that. Right. Whereas if I've got someone who's, owns a pizza shop, it's not really a cohesive relationship as much as that's going to be. That might be better for something like a value add partnership, like we'll talk about in the future here. So does this make sense?
It does, yes. A lot more sense.
Cool. So when we select the one or two, maybe three that you've got partnerships, we want to act a little more strategically in terms of how we're going to set this venture up. And there's a couple things that need to happen. One, we need to be able to remember that we're selling to them and not their patients. A lot of people get this mixed up. And if I'm going to the personal trainer, for example, yes, I can help their clients, but I need to make sure that I'm building a relationship with them and helping them get what they want. So for example, going to a trainer and saying, hey, I can help get your clients out of pain, this, that doesn't necessarily help them. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, we've got to put ourselves in their shoes. And often what happens, even with health practitioners, interdisciplinary transactions between acupuncturist, massage, chiro, and physio, I call it kind of discrimination based on, practitioner or license or whatever it is. So what happens is people have doubts in their mind. Well, if you help get my clients out of pain, what if you tell them that personal training is bad or an exercise that I do is bad and the client doesn't want to train with me anymore? Those are things that go through people's heads all the time. And if you're a personal trainer to a medical professional, for me and you, like, we're licensed, and if something goes wrong and we refer someone out, we need to have a reason why we're referring them to someone. And if something goes wrong, we could potentially be liable or at least have to go through the problems of going through issues with the college and whatnot, which are all things we don't want to waste our time doing. So there's a lot of bias. If I don't know who you are as the trainer and you don't know who I am as a therapist on both scenarios, that there's going to be mistrust. We need to bridge that gap first. So first thing that I like to do is very similar to the sales process, where we actually pre-qualify and filter the people that we're trying to work with. So if I'm looking at personal trainers, first thing that I would do, we're going to say personal trainer. First thing I would do is I would look at my network and I would see who are the people who are most likely to work with me and that I align with the most. So if you've got a personal trainer network and they just do hardcore boot camp workouts that are just crushing people and they're going to get rhabdomyosis, then maybe that's not the person that you want to strategically align yourself with. But maybe there's someone who's more interested in functional medicine or a holistic approach. Maybe you align yourself with them. So I look for the people in my network that are going to be the most specific. If I don't have anyone in that network, I start to look for people in the community who have a bit of influence, who have a bit of a track record, and they have good things like, if they have good business sense in some regard, like they've got some testimonials, they've got good reviews like online, they've got like some components to their business about who they are and what they do, then I would start approaching those, and they align with me, I would start approaching those people to start building my network with. After that, I simply like to reach out to them and I'd say something like, hey, I'm Mike from 5E Pain Relief Therapy, and I'm just starting my practice in this area. I focus on helping people with XYZ, your USM. I noticed that you're a personal trainer and you like functional medicine and exercise and so on, and it seems like we align on a lot of things. I wondered if you'd be open to talking a little bit about how I can best help support you, and maybe we can have a bit of a cohesive relationship, and my patients can be better served by your services. Let me know if you're willing to discuss. If I say something like that, people are going to respond back because I'm making it about them. I'm positioning it about, hey, how can I support you? How can I help you get better results? We're kind of alike. I built some rapport with that. So we're kind of alike. We sort of treat and train and think the similar way. More than likely, they're going to respond back. So after I reach out, I like to schedule usually a 10-minute call, 15-minute call with someone, just so I can understand a little bit more. So if they respond back and say, hey, sure, I'd love to, Mike, you say, okay, let's set up a call, like 10, 15 minutes. If they're close by, go for a coffee, whatever. I know that a lot has changed in the new world. So do whatever makes the most sense. For me, sometimes the relationships, it's hard to like meet someone and go out and whatever, like lots of things going on. So I like to do phone calls, but Zoom, whatever works best for you. The whole purpose of the 10-minute call is to really gauge, is this person someone that I want to do business with and that I can actually help them and they actually are legit, or are they crazy and I don't really want to deal with them? Same process of like clients, same process of the hiring and so on. And you will get some people when you reach out to them, they have a high ego and they're very like rude. Like you'll pick up on these things as you build them. But the whole purpose after that is really to get into the solution of saying, hey, you know what? I'm putting together a bit of a draft of some information so we can maybe do some work together, and let me know if that'd be something you're open to. If the person says yes, then what I do is I move on. So basically, either have yes or no. If they're no, then I just say something like, all right, well, this, I don't think it's going to work for these reasons, whatever it is. If they say yes and you feel like it's a good fit, we go over to the next section. And the next section is really your proposal. And where a lot of people go wrong is they don't have any expectations or proposals or discussion of what needs to happen. So two things happen. One, either nobody does anything because there's no accountability and there's no metrics associated, and then people either have nothing happens. They get no clients, they get no leads. There's no momentum between the relationship. It's one-sided, whatever it is. It doesn't usually work out well. So what we need to do is say, all right, Mike, so I've put together some information. I'm just going to send it over to you, and then we can schedule another call, just sort of see what your thoughts are. What I like to do is what I call a test program or pilot program with someone. So this helps people feel more at ease. It also allows you to see if it's worthwhile to invest your time into doing this. So I actually put together a bit of a proposal, and I would like to meet with someone generally to go over it. But again, you can do it phone, whatever works best for you, Zoom, so on. And in this proposal, what I like to position it as, hey, this is going to be a 4-week trial, for example. So we just say something, hey, we don't know what it's going to be like right now, but what I propose is we do a 4-week trial and just see, you could see how I'm doing stuff. If you get your feedback from clients, and ultimately I'm going to be able to see your patients, and we can see if this is going to be cohesive and we work well together and so on. And at the end of the 4 weeks, we'll talk about what the next steps are to continue this on, so that we can grow our community, and I can help support you and your patients as we grow together. Does that sound good? Make sense? So the 4 weeks, I like to position it because if it doesn't go well, you can end it and just say, well, you know what? At the 4 weeks, it didn't work well. So let's just leave it as is. And there's been a couple of mine that have not gone well. The person was just not organized enough and committed. They were just looking for us to, very one-sided, for us to give them stuff, and they're not doing similar things. So in this, what I like to do is I generally take a portion of people that I have, and I say, listen, you're a personal trainer. What I think is going to be the best idea is if you give me 5 of your top people who are experiencing pain right now, your top clients who are experiencing pain and they've got some nagging injuries. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refer you a bunch of patients that I think would benefit from being able to do exercise. Now, with that being said, when you're setting something up like this, there are some regulations where you can't provide remunerations and that type of stuff. So you have to check with your college what you can and can't do. But basically, if I'm saying, listen, I'm going to give you a sample size of people that need X corrective exercise, help facilitate it, you're not really going to have too many issues like that. But again, you don't want to be like, hey, I'll give you $10 for every person you give me or something like that. That's not a great dynamic to have. And depending on your college, you may or may not be able to do something like that. So I really like to do a sample size of people because it really is easier to gauge on what's going to happen. Number one, do they actually communicate to their clients about what is going to happen? And do they follow through and that type of stuff? So the sample size, I like to get them to agree to that. I like to be able to have communication between what's going to happen. So for example, if I'm going to be giving 5 people to you, I would say, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to CC you on an email with these patients, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit of information. Obviously, if they sign the disclosure and so on, keep within your regulations, but I'm going to share a little bit about what's going on with them. And I just want you to send me a quick email after each appointment that you do and just let me know what's going on. So that way you've now got a communication component, because a lot of the time people just send someone and there's no communication. And this is where the problems get. Well, what did Mike say? Well, Mike said, don't do squats. What do you mean he said, don't do squats? We need to do squats. But meanwhile, you said, oh, don't do squats this way or do it in this way or something. So this is why communication is really important. I've seen a lot of joint ventures get messed up because of that. They're communicating through the client, not the practitioners or the therapist or trainer or whoever else that might be. And then lastly, there are, since we've got the sample size down, we've got the communication, we need to have the any other expectations that you have on there. So that might be something like, okay, well, they need to schedule this way, or you need to send me their workout programs they're doing or whatever. So these are just kind of like what I call quality control components to what needs to be done. And then both people here really need to sign on the dotted line that both of you guys agree to that, or girls agree to that. So that way we've got a 4-week trial and we can gauge as we're going through. Well, if they don't give you anyone to begin with and you're giving them a bunch of people, then it's one-sided. It's probably not going to work. But because I have a layout, I can go back and say, hey, Mike, I sent you 3 people. They booked in last week. I haven't heard anything back from your clients yet. Can you please connect me on an email? And if that goes on 2 weeks and 3 weeks, then we know that that's probably not going to work. But if this works well, you communicate, they give you people, they're giving you people who are the right fit for you. You communicate really well. They can, manage this and have a bit of a system and organization to it, and they make it a part of their day-to-day stuff and not just, hey, I'm just going to wait for Mike to give me tons of clients, then what we do is we talk about the next steps, and we can formalize something that's kind of like the same sort of step, and just keep something going forward and saying, hey, I'm going to send you 5 people every month. You send me 5 people every month, whatever that looks like moving forward. That way, every 4 weeks to 6 weeks, you're able to actually review what happened. So the metrics wise is really important, because if you guys want to cohesively grow together, you want to know where you can best support them. And for some reason, if something goes wrong, you can follow up with someone and say, okay, well, hey man, we need a little bit more communication, or hey, I need some help actually with some exercise. Can you come in and do a presentation for my patients? It allows you to create a better relationship that's built on, yes, getting patients and clients coming in to see you, but also a cohesive relationship with the person that you're working with. And this is going to yield you significant leverage, both in community from, the omnipresence kind of method, and everyone's kind of seeing you, but you're building relationships and kind of friendships and bonds with people on a deeper level. The patients that are going to come to you from here are going to be a lot more bought in, because they have someone who they trust already vouching for them. And if you set up a couple of these relationships, you can basically get fed an entire patient roster. So when I first started as a solo practice, I had already gotten up and running because I had personal training. So I had a chiropractor, I had a physiotherapist, and a naturopath I had good relationships with, that basically I would probably get 20 patients a month coming just from those sources alone. And then I would do workshops and the other stuff as well, but I would get a ton of new people right away. So many more people that I would get full very quickly, which created other problems and why I had to hire people and grow. But ultimately, I was able to get an entire business just from having 3 primary relationships of people who would refer me clients. So this is why it's really important to be able to set up the joint venture partnership properly from the beginning, and being able to make sure that everyone knows the expectation. We're able to communicate, and we know that, hey, this is a test in the beginning, and we're looking at seeing how well we work together. So this is a long-term thing. So that way it snaps people out of the mindset of, oh, I'm just going to get what I can get right now. Give me as many people. It's like, listen, this is going to be ongoing. We're going to evaluate, and we're going to build this relationship together. And I've seen some clients before actually partner with these practitioners in a practice. So I have one right now that was a massage therapist and physiotherapist for women's pelvic and post-pregnancy based treatments. And they worked together, set up joint venture partnerships, and went through that kind of process, and ended up having a practice together. So it's a really powerful concept, and ultimately gives you the power to be able to create leverage in your business and not have to worry about having expectations where you feel like, hey, I'm just going to bother people to get them leads, and definitely not as passive as being able to just hand out business cards and hope for the best, and that you get someone to come in and book from you. So we want to use a little bit more strategy. I like to pick the 1 or 2 people to start with, build those relationships, nurture those relationships, go through this process. And if it doesn't work out, no problem. There's always more people in your community that you can set it up. But once you get the right thing going, and you've got someone who's got a good business, and they're kind of a little bit more accountable, and they're a little bit more set up properly for their own business, and they've got the right types of patients for you, then it can be extremely, extremely powerful.